Once again, we see old habits die hard. We're being watched, and so's the crowd. It's not enough to deflate the enthusiasm for most, but some still fear the old consequences of being seen at a political rally. We press on regardless. We can't afford to miss that all-important shot.
We want to film her get out of the car and walk. See, this is why we stand here.
The presence of pushy international journalists is a side effect of democratic reform that no one's quite sure how to deal with. Finally, arriving into the heat and the dust like a cool breeze, the lady herself. It's a rock star welcome. Aung San Suu Kyi is not only taking the military on trust, she's also trying to overcome some restrictions on campaigning that appear to be designed to give government candidates an advantage.
Democracy
It'll take more than just courage. There are endless practical problems as well. Aung San Suu Kyi is just hitting her stride when the generator fails. But the people don't mind. And pretty soon, she's off again. She eventually departs in much the same way she arrived, and we're leaving too.
I want to talk to her. Dosu!
Aung San Suu Kyi is about the only thing many people know about Burma, and we're keen to get away and into the parts of the country most people never get to see. The vast majority of Burmese live in remote rural communities, and it's like stepping back in time. They survive off the land, and the state does little for them. We've arrived at the village of Kondan in western Burma, and while we're roaming far and wide like never before, there are some limitations. Our government minders told us that we can't stay in the village with the local people, but we can stay at the monastery. So, with the permission of the monks, that's what we plan to do. Come on. Hi. How are you? Thank you for having us. Come on, kids. The monastery's abbot has offered us a place to crash for the night. Buddha watches over us while we sleep. Each morning the abbot tutors these young boys. Religion is one of the few areas where people can express themselves with some freedom. It offers them strength and safety. Some monks have played a brave role in Burmese political resistance. They've spoken out when the people were too afraid to, and they've been punished for it. Many were jailed after a failed revolution in 2007, and they've only recently been released. Religion has endured, and the monastery remains figuratively and literally at the centre of every community. This village is typical of those we encounter on our journey. Local chief Yulei Po explains that there's no school for older children, so they have to drop out as early as age 10 or move to a larger town. There are few community facilities or even basic services. The chief introduces me to 27-year-old Chote Ma, who's only the third person in the village to ever go to university. 5 years after graduation, she's still unemployed. In a country where the military controls every single thing, it's all about who you know. Whether the regime actually passes the power to the people rather than just talking about it will be the ultimate test of the reform program. With 60 million people and an abundance of natural resources, Burma could be a new Asian tiger. Until now, the biggest investor has been China. But if the West lifts economic sanctions, money from other countries will flood in. And along with that will come curious tourists who want to see what all the fuss is about. And they're in for a treat. Until now, Burma's been a niche tourist destination, despite its obvious wow factor. The Central Plain has long been known as the spiritual heart of the country, and Bagan is at the centre of the tourist trade now more than ever. Political change has brought about a tourist boom, with flights and hotels fully booked. For many here in Bagan, life has barely changed since this extraordinary temple complex was built 1,000 years ago. And while for us that means lots of great photo opportunities, for the people who live here, it means a very tough life.
Right, everybody, welcome to Balloons over Bagan. As I said, my name is Ian, and I'm your pilot this morning.
Balloons over Bagan is a partly Australian-owned company that's been operating here for 13 years, despite military rule. Each year it caters for more tourists drawn to this extraordinary place.
I guess somehow I had some impressions that it would be a lot more closed than it is, but people are willing to talk very freely to me, and people seem to be talking about having a sense of change themselves and what's coming, and very hopeful.
The world's a nicer place in my beautiful balloon.
And more recently, with the relaxation of the military's iron grip, the numbers have really taken off.
Okay, we're climbing up now, guys.
Oh, we can
More than 80 local staff are employed by the company. It's making a big difference to the local economy.
Yes, I've seen a lot of increasing in tourists, this year in particular. Over the last couple of years, there's been indications of change within Myanmar, but this year in particular, we know that the hotels are full, and that's also reflected in us in the balloons because we've had lots of people to fly.
He is hoping the bubble doesn't burst.
And here in Bagan, we say cheers, pros, salut, kampai, chin chin, a chagwa, which is Burmese, and soft landings.
Soft landing.
Chakwa.
Chagwa.
And so, to the road to Mandalay.
On the road to Mandalay.
It's one of the world's legendary routes thanks to the poem by Rudyard Kipling, and thanks to many more writers, musicians and filmmakers who followed, the mythology and legend has grown.
Across the bay.
But in the 21st century, it's a well-worn trail that leads to a city that's arguably the engine room of the country. Surrounded by historic old cities, it's become an economic hub propped up by Chinese money. Sadly, it's our last stop. If, as is hoped, Burma's tentative steps back into the world become strides that bring prosperity to the people, then Mandalay will be an epicentre of a new nation. It's a big if.
We've had about 2 weeks to complete this journey. Not long enough, but longer than we've ever had permission to stay before. Now the train is leaving Mandalay for Rangoon, and it's time for us to make a run for it too before our visas expire.
Finally, some time to reflect. This country has so much to offer. Natural wonders, a deep and enduring history, and brave, hard-working and resilient people. But will they ever be allowed to reach their full potential?
The train is now leaving. Everybody's on board. So nobody would like to drop out from the trains. And everybody knows that the reform must go ahead.
It's clear that this place is changing fast. Who knows if the people at the top will keep their word? And what will it mean for those who until now have never had a say in their future? There's only one thing for it. Down the track, I'll just have to come back and find out.